Sarah stared at her laptop screen, cursor blinking above the send button. She had written the perfect email, then deleted it 3 separate times. What if my boss reads this and secretly thinks it sounds unprepared? Maybe you know this feeling, that quiet voice whispering, "You're not ready." You rehearse a simple question 5 times before finally raising your hand. You write a text, delete it, rewrite it, then delete it again. You finish a project you're proud of, then quietly assume it's weak. Maybe it's the interview where you answered fine yet still felt inadequate. Maybe it's scrolling social media, watching everyone else seem confident, successful, thriving. That inner voice rarely says you're doing great. It mostly stays silent. Instead, it whispers harsh things, reminding you of every small past mistake. If any of this sounds familiar, you are far from truly alone. This is not weakness, and it is not some rare character flaw. This is your brain running an old program built for another world. Today we explore why your brain constantly makes you doubt your worth. Then we will show you exactly how to quiet that loud critic. Self-doubt feels deeply personal, but its roots are surprisingly old universal. Thousands of years ago, one mistake could mean injury, exile, or death. Your ancestors who doubted danger and double-checked things survived far longer. Confident risk-takers sometimes thrived, but many confident risk-takers also died. So evolution quietly favored cautious brains that constantly scanned for hidden threats. Your brain kept the worriers alive, and you inherited their cautious wiring. That ancient alarm system still runs today, though the threats have changed. Now the danger is rarely a lion, but an awkward email instead. Your amygdala cannot easily tell real physical danger from simple social embarrassment. Both trigger the exact same flood of stress hormones and anxious thoughts. This pattern is called negativity bias, noticing threats far more strongly overall. Negative feedback simply weighs heavier in memory than equally frequent positive feedback. One harsh comment can erase 10 genuine compliments within a single afternoon. Psychologists describe this as the gap between actual threat and perceived threat. Your brain reacts identically whether the danger is imagined or completely real. There is also something called imposter syndrome, named by psychologists decades ago. It describes capable people who feel secretly fraudulent despite clear evidence otherwise. Studies suggest most high achievers experience this feeling at some meaningful point. Doctors, executives, students, and artists all quietly report this exact private fear. Social comparison theory explains another piece of this frustrating human puzzle. We instinctively measure ourselves against others, especially through curated social media posts. You compare your messy, behind-the-scenes life to someone's polished highlight. That comparison is fundamentally unfair, yet your brain performs it automatically, constantly. Childhood also shapes this inner critic more than most people ever realize. Harsh criticism or constant comparison early in life trains a lasting narrator. That narrator often sounds exactly like a disappointed parent, teacher, or sibling. Over time, that outside voice quietly becomes your own default internal monologue. So now you understand why doubt appears. Understanding alone rarely changes behavior. Here's the first practical shift. Separate your feelings from provable facts. Feeling unprepared is simply a feeling. It is not proof of incompetence. Try writing down 3 concrete reasons you were actually chosen for something. Facts anchor you steady, while feelings alone tend to drift toward worst case. Second, build what psychologists call an evidence file for tough, uncertain moments. Save every compliment, achievement, and success message inside one simple, dedicated folder. When doubt strikes, open that folder instead of arguing inside your head. Third, practice self-compassion instead of harsh, relentless, unforgiving self-criticism daily. Speak to yourself the way you'd gently speak to a struggling friend. Research shows self-compassion improves performance more effectively than harsh self-criticism does. Harsh criticism triggers threat responses, while compassion actually calms your nervous system. Fourth, reframe doubt as useful information, not as an accurate final verdict. Doubt often simply means you care deeply, not that you will fail. Ask yourself honestly what you'd attempt right now if fear was absent. Fifth, take small, imperfect action instead of waiting for total, complete confidence. Confidence usually follows action. It rarely arrives conveniently before you actually begin. Sarah finally pressed send. Now it's your turn to send the email, ask the question, and submit the imperfect but finished project. Each small action gradually teaches your brain the perceived threat was safe. Over time, repeated safe outcomes slowly retrain that ancient overprotective alarm system. Sixth, limit comparison by curating your social media feed more intentionally today. Unfollow accounts that consistently trigger comparison instead of genuine inspiration or connection. Remember that everyone online is quietly editing out their own private doubts. Seventh, talk about your doubt openly with someone you genuinely deeply trust. Saying doubt out loud instantly shrinks its power over your racing mind. You will often discover that person feels the exact same hidden way. Self-doubt is not proof of weakness. It is proof of wiring. Your brain is simply doing its old, outdated job of trying to protect. You get to decide whether that ancient alarm still deserves your obedience. Next time doubt whispers, quietly thank it. Then choose brave, imperfect action. Growth never requires the total absence of doubt, only action beside presence. The most successful people you admire still feel doubt before every moment. They simply learn to act anyway, and that distinction changes absolutely everything. Picture the version of you who acts calmly despite the noisy critic. That version is not fearless. They simply refuse to let fear drive. You can build that same skill, slowly, through small, repeated, deliberate practice. Doubt will likely never fully disappear, and honestly, it probably never should. A small amount of doubt keeps you humble, careful, and genuinely open. The goal is not silence. The goal is learning to act anyway. Next time your brain whispers you are not ready, notice it. Breathe. Ask what evidence actually supports that thought and what evidence contradicts it. Then take one small step forward, regardless of how loud that voice. Your brain will slowly learn that stepping forward rarely leads to danger. Over weeks and months, that inner critic naturally grows noticeably quieter, calmer. You do not need to silence doubts completely before you start living. You only need to act slightly louder than that outdated protective alarm. Doubt will always visit, but it never gets to make final decisions. You are allowed to feel unsure and still move forward, bravely, today. That single choice, repeated daily, quietly rewires how your whole brain responds. Here's the truth worth remembering long after this video ends today. Doubt is not evidence. It is simply an old, outdated alarm sounding. You get to choose which alarms deserve your attention and which don't. If this video helped you understand your own mind, please tap like. Subscribe for more real psychology explained simply without confusing jargon or fluff. Comment below with one moment when self-doubt almost stopped you acting. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Thank you for watching, and remember, your doubt does not define worth.